Hello and welcome to the video by Current Excel. I'm Sumit Bansal, and in this video I'm going to show you how to get the data from the current workbook into Power Query. Now here I have three sheets, and on sheet 1 I have this office supplies sales data for July 2018. And this data is plain tabular data. It's not an Excel table, it's not a named range. In sheet 2 I have the same data, but this has been converted into an Excel table. And in sheet 3, I again have the same data, but this has been converted into a named range. So if I select this entire data set, you can see it says data NR, which is the name of the named range. To create this named range, I simply selected the entire data set and type the name of the named range here in the name box. The Excel table name is data in table. Now, if I go back to sheet 1 where I have the data which is not an Excel table or a named range, and I want to get this data into Power Query so that I can do the transformation, I would have to go to the data tab and click on from table range. But I cannot take this data into Power Query without converting it into an Excel table. So if I click on this, it would first force me to convert this into an Excel table. And only when this has become an Excel table, I can open this in Power Query. So if I click on OK, the first step that happens is this entire data set gets converted into an Excel table, and then it opens in the query editor. See what happens when I click OK? It opens the data in the query editor, and the name of the table is a default name, which is table 2, which is also the name of the query. Now see what happens when you use an Excel table to get this data into Power Query. Power Query identifies the rows in this data. So it has picked up the headers from your data set directly. And it in most of the cases identifies the data types correctly. So it has identified that this is a date data type. These are text, these two columns, these two are whole numbers. Here you can see it says whole numbers, and the last one is decimal number. So it has identified these data types correctly. Now, if I want to load this data back into Excel, I can simply go to close and load, and it would insert a new sheet and load this data. Now, of course, in this case, it would do nothing just but duplicate the data set, so it's not really useful. But in cases when you want to combine multiple tables or append multiple tables, then getting the data into Power Query and saving it as a connection can be useful. And we will see how to do this in the next videos. Let me close this and discard this. Here in sheet 2 I already have an Excel table. So if I already have a table and then I ask Power Query to open this data in the query editor, it will not show me a prompt of converting it into an Excel table because it's already in that format. So if I go to data and click on from table range, it instantly opens this in the query editor. And again, same happens. The header row is picked up from the table and all the data types are identified. Of course, you can make the transformation, you can make the changes if you want, and those steps would be listed here. Now let me close this and discard the data. In sheet 3, in case you do not want to convert your data into an Excel table for whatever reason, you can have a named range. And if you use a named range to open this data in Power Query, it will not force you to convert this into an Excel table. It would realize that this is a named range and Power Query is fine with it. So if I select any data point in this named range, go to data and click on from table range, it would open the query editor. And the name of the query is data NR, which is the name of the named range. And in this case, there are 3 steps. If you remember, in the case of Excel table, there were only 2 steps: source and changed type. The reason this happens is that if I click on source, you can see because it's not an Excel table, Power Query cannot determine which is the header row or what are the headers in this data set. So it simply gets the entire data set here. But in the next step, it identifies that the data type of the first row is different as compared to the remaining data set. So it promotes the first row as the headers as the next step. And in the third step, it would change these data types. So for example, if you come here in the date column, you can see it cannot identify the data type. In here, it says data type any, which means that it doesn't understand what data type it is. But in the next step, it would convert these into the data types based on its understanding. So in this case, it identified that this is the date data type. So it converted into date, and these two becomes text, these two are whole number, and the last one is decimal. So the impact, the overall impact is the same, but using an Excel table to get the data into Power Query is a much better way because the data types are identified correctly and the header row is identified correctly. So this is how, if you have data in your current workbook, you can put this into Power Query by using the From Table Range button. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Thank you and have a nice day.